Hello, Team 6. So in a moment, you'll see your feedback from Sherry and Ivan Habel. They loved your idea. You'll notice that the video starts right in, Ivan just started talking about the idea, so I just put the webcam on, so you caught him in mid-sentence. And really what's going on is a 9 to 10 minute conversation about the potential of the idea. So good work, team, in that you put something forward that truly captured the imagination of the panel. Sound is terrible. I'm not sure what to say about that. I wish it wasn't. But if you want more details, you can ask me, and I'll try my best to pull it together. I wish it was a great conversation, so I only wish the sound had not been so poor. So, okay, so you have this tapas idea, and it's really strong, and they would want it further developed. Now, I'm very interested in this team's process because I think something very curious went on. First of all, Sarah became the default process coordinator, it seems. When I look at most of the posts, they were started by her, so great job. And I think Sarah did a really strong job of keeping everything in order and keeping the process going. So, great work. And I was also really impressed, when I read, and I think I commented on this at the time, when I read your "Wouldn't it be nice, wouldn't it be awful if," some of them really made me laugh, and not just because they were funny as in sort of, just jokes, but because they were astute in what they said about the belfry. So I think you were very perceptive in your observations, and I think that work carried through all the way, sort of. It carried through all the way, but what I noticed in this, I thought was very interesting from a process perspective, was there was the process, and then there was what was really going on. So I can almost trace, and you will have to correct me if I'm wrong because I wasn't there engaged in your process to the degree you are. But there was a point in week 3 where Tom put a new heading up and said, "This is a rant," and he said Ivan has to get his head out of the sand. If the belfry ever wants to capture the younger demographic, they're going to need to be more flexible. And actually, that is sort of, you can trace a straight line between that rant, which actually ended up being, I think, at the heart of your recommendation, and you could trace it throughout to the final, where really what you were looking for was how do you capture the young working professional demographic, and how do you do it by offering flexibility? So, okay, so that's what made your presentation strong, was that you came up with this tapas idea, which captures that demographic because it offers flexibility. And if you can hear the part of the feedback where I type in, as myself a young-ish working professional, I would go to this event and then talk about why, and the feedback that's coming up momentarily. However, it's almost as if you don't want to engage in the process. Not that you don't want to engage in the process, but almost as if the interesting stuff has to occur outside the process. And, for example, this idea of flexibility for the young professional was introduced as a rant, not as part of the regular thread. Also, your criteria don't represent what you were looking for. So your criteria are very broad, effective for long-term, probability of success, ease of implementation, very generic. Whereas what you were really looking for, one of your key criteria, and you saw in the first sentence of your two paragraph summary, is flexibility. So there's almost the real ideas, which were really strong, that were coming out, and then there's the process, which you somehow were just doing. So what I would like to see in terms of reflection, and let me say that softly, because what you reflect on or what you move forward on is completely your choice. I'll tell you what I'm curious about, but I say that as someone curious, not as your instructor. I'm not asking you to do this as an instructor. I'm very, very curious about what was going on there. And there's something else, sorry, that I wrote here. I'll have to look it up after. But But I'm very curious about what went on. How it was that, for example, you clearly had a strong sense in your head of what the real criteria were, and yet you were using criteria you put on paper were different. And I think that would also lead you back to your BHAG. If your BHAG was full house for every show, what and how can, and I think your question was something around attracting a wider patron base. In fact, when I look at the solutions you can consider, they're all around that working professional market. And if in fact you went back, cycled back, and used that as your question, how might we attract the working professional market? That focuses your thinking. Why is this important? Why am I harping on process to you? The reason I'm doing this, here you might be thinking, we came up with a great idea. Who cares about whether we adhere to your process or not? The reason I'm harping on this is because the whole point is to make this replicable, right? That if you're someone who naturally comes up with good ideas, how do you do that in an organizational setting where you alone coming up with good ideas is not the point, nor is it usually helpful. The whole point of this course is how do we reduce the ambiguity and mystery around creative process and actually build some architecture around it. So you sort of went through the creative process successfully, but I'd wonder if you would be able to replicate it because it seems like you did it outside of the architecture that was suggested. Now, what does that mean for future? And you'll have to tell me that. Does that mean you should follow the rules? I hope not. I hope that you find your own way of engaging with a process that works for you, and I hope you reflect on this in your papers if it interests you. I also thought, by the way, I thought your use of this tool was really great. The impact versus achievability. But I think you did a really strong job of really using that tool well. And if I remember correctly, I didn't put that as part of the process. So I guess that would be another question I have for you. It is a genuine question. Does it simply interest you more to color outside the lines, and that's where you do your best work as a team? So these are genuine questions. What I'm noticing is a disconnect between process and product in this team. What I'd encourage you to do is try to intertwine them as you move forward, so that your creativity can be replicable and inclusive of others. If you have questions, I am saying, in a way, I'm picking up on small signals that I get through Moodle. I don't know the messiness and what actually went on step by step as you went forward. So if you have questions, if I'm interpreting things in perhaps not the correct way, let me know. Great work, exciting idea. I hope they implement it because I will be the first in line. All right, bye-bye.
Here it is for me. I think that it incorporates several kind of interesting ideas in terms of creating an experience in the building, an experience in the theater. That is a taste of the theater and a kind of more complete social package. So, and not to say that it's not an original concept. There are similar concepts that have existed in other places. So, Royal Shakespeare Society not Royal Shakespeare, the Shakespeare Society in Oregon did a bargain beer event for university and college students that was quite successful for a number of years. Theatre Junction in Calgary, when they devised their new space, they have a performance space, they have an art gallery, and they have a restaurant bar that's part of it. So in fact, the very demographic which this group is talking about, which is an exciting demographic in terms of young working professionals, is the demographic that Theatre Junction is in fact attracting, because it's an encompassing and total social experience. Exactly. It's not just going to the theater. You can have a bite to eat. You can go to the gallery. You can go to the theater. You can go back to the gallery. You can go back to the restaurant and the bar. At the end of the show, there's music that plays as part of the bar experience. and so you see those kinds of things in terms of doing this as ancillary and additional programming is interesting in it. That the concept that's where the concept becomes a little more original in terms of talking about the development of these kind of mini plays or these short plays, right? So you take a Louisville one-act play festival, but you then condense it so that it's actually a mini play festival that's part of food and bar or club experience at Belfast. I think is an interesting idea. I'm not sure how we develop that in terms of working through what are the costs of doing that, but it's something that the staff here in the initial strategic planning discussions have talked about making the Belfry more of a social gathering place. Yeah. And that's the really strong part of this idea for me is talking about that. So while we don't have kitchen facilities and so the complications of doing something like the tapas bar is a little more complicated than just doing it because the nature of tapas is that it's cooked and it's served. So it's not a. But the idea of kind of snacking on a variety of foods while you have a variety of theatrical mini experiences is a great concept.
It is a great concept, and there is the idea of partnering with cooking schools or other food purveyors, art gallery, local music. But that I love that idea of a whole experience because and especially in that demographic, and we talked about the term that you use, the people with children. What was that term? The young professionals who have children, and so that keeps them from coming.
Yeah.
But that I know that, and I remember from my earlier days of younger children, getting a babysitter, and then you go to a restaurant in one place, come out of the restaurant, go to that's. And even the idea of some of the young people we know have said, you have this thing where you can come and wear whatever you're wearing, casual, but we want to dress up to go out. Mm-hmm. But to dress up to go out and just sit in a theater.
Yeah.
So having more of an experience, something to dress up for, where you're mingling with people, where you're talking, eating here, and making it all possible in one place. Because it's a lot of work to plan an evening and then to have to drive from place to place, to create an evening's experience. So something about creating an evening's experience, that is exciting.
Well, if I could just sort of build on this as just a person, in one of our original conversations, before this conversation, Sherry and I were I was just talking about I want to go to see Red, and Sherry said, I'll go with you. And I said, oh, that's great, because if I go with Ken, we've got to get babysit, all that stuff. We've got to get babysitting. It's not going to be his favorite way to spend the night out, all this stuff. And so,
which is exactly why she came to, because you need to transform that.
I know what I mean. But my dilemma is always, do I talk to my husband or do we do something? So it's not about theater. We don't go to movies. We don't go to concerts because when we go, it's our only opportunity to talk to each other. And so if there was an opportunity to do both, where we could catch some theater, do something, and then have something to talk about, besides the kids. And, and also, so when I mentioned, before we went on camera, I mentioned Fernwood Bites, which is right outside. So if there was an opportunity in that kind of setting, grab a drink, go, catch some entertainment, then have a chance to talk. I would love that. Yeah.
And so it's a small, it doesn't overtake what we're already doing. It would be a dedicated, one night per show or 2 nights per show on a night when the theater's dark, on a Monday night. But yes, bringing people in who aren't, it's just a little bit too much work to get here because of, all of the different things in their lives. So, and I love that idea that once they're here and have the experience, that makes it easier to maybe get the babysitter and do a dedicated theater experience because you've been here and you've had a great experience.
Mm-hmm. And that said, you wouldn't, it looks like they're talking about a pilot on Friday or Saturday, one Saturday or Friday a week, and then growing them. So in a way, it sounds like from this proposal that this is instead of some of your regular programming. You wouldn't recommend that, is what I'm hearing from you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the first thing I thought was, okay, we have people who there's a subscription issue there, because we have people who renew their subscriptions every year. Every year they come on the second Friday. And so this would be a new experience for them. It would be, a lot of people have already bought into an experience that they, are used to having. So I'm assuming that those Friday and Saturday nights, we only have a certain number of tickets available. We'd want to have it dedicated to this. So I don't know how that would fit in future seasons or something, but it would be more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, as we've all things, everything's kind of possible. I think the concept of the idea, ignore the Friday and Saturday nights in the proposal and just look at the overall concept of the idea, I think is valuable and worth exploring. Then how you feed that into current programming, or whether it's ancillary to it, or whether it's an extension of that current program. There's nothing to suggest that you couldn't do say we had the facilities and we figured out all of the logistics of working out how you actually create a tax experience. So you do a 6 o'clock start, you do a little food, a little drinks, a couple of little mini theater experiences, then you expand that into the full length play, and then you come back out and you're able to again, sit around in the lobby and have a drink, or go explore again another little piece of theater or whatever it is. So you could build it around the programming that exists, or you could build it as a separate experience, i.e. a Monday night in this case, but it wouldn't work so well on Mondays, but where you build it into the programming schedule, where it's say a Friday night, the third Friday of every run is this tapas night or whatever. Those are all possible over time. But exploring the idea of how you develop those things, what the true nature of the tapas theater experience is, how you develop an ongoing interest in food, and whether it's a consistent kind of menu style, or whether it's ongoing and changing, or whether it's somehow thematically related. All of those things are the exploration beyond the initial concept.
But there's a beautiful kernel here, obviously, because we've gotten very excited and are talking about this. And as you pointed out in your proposal, it's try it on a small basis, and then you can see if and how it can be expanded.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.